Annyeong, it's Mikey here, and today we're coming back with another Switch video, and this time it's the Keygeek Roxy. We have to thank Unikeys for sending me this out because, obviously, they sent me out a bunch of Switches. They are a sponsor of this channel, and I really enjoy trying out many new Switches. I'm just someone who loves sound, and I love testing out things, so this is really fun. We're gonna have to see what this Keygeek Roxy is like, so let's go straight into the Switch information, and the sound test, and of course, the whole teardown. So please, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get into this. Now introducing the Keygeek Roxy. Please keep in mind my voice is still coming back, but we're gonna have to hear what the Switch is like, especially since Keygeek has changed their mold. So I'm very curious what kind of clack we're gonna get with the Switch. So overall, this Switch is a quite loud and clacky Switch. I think they did make this quite scratchy as well. That's the kind of feel that I got with the specific Switch in terms of when I was typing on it, and you guys could probably hear it in the sound test. I think it's not just a scratch to it, but it almost sounds like leaf scratch. So I don't know if everyone's really going to enjoy this. Now, in terms of the travel, so we start off at 18.1 millimeters, and then once you do press down all the way, you're going down to 14.3, and that travel should be 3.8 millimeters. Now, even if we test it multiple times, we are getting the 3.8, which it says 3.6 millimeters on the information, but it's plus or minus 0.2. So obviously this is getting the full 3.8 out of there. Now, in terms of the overall housing and the feel, so let's take a look at the bottom housing in terms of the stock lubing. You can really see here as we look at the leaf contact points that it's going to be pretty lubed. This is where I'm thinking it's not actually going to be leaf scratch, even though it kind of sounds like it with the specific Switch. It has this very interesting sound to it in terms of how the Switch is making that kind of scratchy feel as well as noise. And some people, I think, are really going to enjoy it. I know some people do enjoy scratching their Switches, and I think this one's going to be interesting in that way. So going into now the stock lubing of the stem. So the stem is actually very, very minimally lubed. Now, it's going to be very difficult to see. I was trying to make sure that it was catching on the camera, but it was having a hard time. And as you can see here, it is a long pole switch, but the pole itself isn't actually very, very long compared to, say, some other long pole switches out there, for example, like the Keygeek M3. So it is very difficult to see here, but the lubing is like regular Keygeek, where it's going to be on the sides, but it is very, very minimal. Like, you're getting almost no lube on certain portions of the switch, which was kind of interesting to see on the specific stem. And you can even see on the back leaf contact points, there is actually more lube available on the back contact points of the switch and of the stem, sorry. And I found that kind of interesting with this one, and it might be leading towards how the switch is feeling with the typing. It's not smooth like your regular Keygeek at all. So that was the interesting portion in terms of how this switch is actually lubed. It's very, very minimal. One of the sides actually had like no lube on it, and I think it's also possible that the lubing consistency for each switch is also not exactly perfect. That's just something that I've been feeling with this switch, where I had to open up a few of them and I noticed it wasn't exactly the same for every single switch. Now, in terms of the spring, so the spring is a single stage spring, and in terms of my measurements, we're getting a total of 17 millimeters, but in terms of the spec for the switch, it was actually 18 millimeters. So I found that kind of interesting in terms of how the measurement came out. Overall, the switch does feel quite interesting with the way you press down. You do get a little bit more weight, which I'll have to show you in terms of the close-up. Now, in terms of how loud the switch actually gets, so you're looking at a very, very loud switch. You can see here that it's jumping all the way over 70 decibels. If you guys didn't know, 70 decibels is like a vacuum loudness. And this is jumping to 71, even to like 72 decibels, which is quite loud. So keep in mind, this is going to be a very, very loud switch. And as you can see here now, it's the close-up where we're pressing it. So this switch is interesting, where the lower you're pressing it, so the more further it goes down, you can feel more pressure with the switch. So at the top end, it feels quite light, and then the further it goes down with the bottom out, it does feel like it does get heavier, and you can feel it when you are going very, very slowly with the switch. So it's a very interesting feel with it, and I personally do enjoy a heavier feel in terms of the top portion, the actuation, and then it to kind of lighten off when I'm pressing it further. It's just something that I personally prefer. Now, this is what I meant with the new mold. You guys would have seen it in my M3 video, but the housing is actually too tight in a lot of the plates, so keep in mind for yourselves, if you have an alloy plate, it's almost impossible to push it in. You might break something and the pin might bend, so you have to be careful with the new Keygeek molds, just because it could possibly bend a pin. Now, in terms of the top end, it didn't really have much rattling, and then the bottom end, it really is very tight. Like, I'm very surprised with how tight this is, where you get very, very minimal stem wobble, which is impressive. Now, keep in mind that when I move a keycap, it's going to be the keycaps moving a lot more on top of the stem than really the stem itself having stem wobble. So keep in mind for this switch, it is actually quite stable with how the stem wobble is. Now, in terms of the backlighting, so the backlighting is not super bright. The lighting doesn't come through like super heavily with these switches, and you'll notice that the lighting is going to be very, very blue. The housing does affect the overall color of the lights, so you're not going to get very accurate colors. So if you are someone who really likes bright RGB and accurate coloring, this is not going to be the switch for you, unfortunately. Now, going into the spreadsheet, please keep in mind, these are disclaimers, that my spreadsheet is an anchor point only. Switches have many pitches, and it could actually be different per person when they hear it in person and depending on your build. Now, this one, I got the anchor point to about 330. It's not actually clackier than, say, the KD 400s we did recently. It's just the fact that the switch is so loud comparatively that you are getting a feel that it's clackier. Now, is it going to be as clacky as like the Keygeek B1s? No, the B1s are much clackier, much higher pitched, and even louder than these ones. These switches are actually at the 70 decibel point, and overall, I think some people are going to enjoy this. If you like a bit of scratch with your clack and you like something very, very loud, you might be interested in taking a look at the Keygeek Roxy. But if you want to check out the spreadsheet, join my Discord channel in the link below. Now, my final thoughts and my honest opinion about the Keygeek Roxy. So, the thing about the Keygeek Roxy is that it has a very nice clack to it. It's quite bright, but there is a bit of a scratchy feel to these switches. So, if you are someone who does enjoy a little bit of that scratch, you might enjoy these. it almost feels like there is a little bit of that leaf scratch that's happening as well with these switches, which even though it's actually heavily looped there, it does feel like there is a little bit of that scratchiness that's occurring on these switches. So keep in mind for yourselves for these switches. You might enjoy that specific feel, some people might not. You can go check it out for yourselves on Unikeys. Links are in the description. You can also save 7% if you use code Mikey, and it also supports the channel. Now, I'll have to catch you guys next time, but please make sure to like and subscribe.